For 20 long years, I smoked lots of reefer and drank lots of beer. Every day at 420, we're gonna settle the score. And for 20 long years, it's been 20 past 4.
There he is. Hey, welcome to 420 Live. I see you down there, Clem. We'll be with you in just a second. Jeff Kravitz, 420 Live. Welcome to Tuesday, 420. I just got it in right there. Just got it in. You know, old men in technology trying to deal with this show and all the little nooks and crannies is always an adventure. But we're excited to have Clem Burke on the show today, and we're going to talk to Clem in just a minute. But I want to let you guys warm up. I need to warm up a little bit. I'm pretty excited today. Our Governor Mr. Restrictive, has opened up the state of California as of June 15th. There'll be no more restrictions. We can get back to life as it was, you know. And before coming on air, I saw another headline by Dr. Anthony Fauci saying that no fourth wave. I kind of missed the third wave, actually. No more waves. The waves it's flat out there on the ocean of COVID. And the headline under that was people are over it. The Gallup poll is people are finished with COVID. You know what? I am too. I got vaccinated. I hope everybody out there is doing what they can to stay healthy and to get ready for this reopening, this reawakening. I kind of feel like you know, it's kind of like we're losing our collective virginity all over again. We're all going to get out there. We're going to pop our cherry, doing so many things for the first time. First indoor show, first party, first bar, first drink in a bar. First time you don't have to wear a mask. I mean, the masks are annoying, and the more buzzed you get, the more annoying they are. But, you know, they seem to work. Obviously, we did a great job, America, finally. Do you know that we had 5% of us were vaccinated before Biden came in office, and now it's like 75% of adults 65 and older are vaccinated. They put 150 million doses in arms. That's half the people in the United States have at least a dose. And everybody in the age group is getting it. I mean, we're getting there. We're dropping down. I know I was lucky to get in on that first wave. Was like as soon as they lowered it to us folks under 50, just kidding, us folks under 65, I was able to get in there and I got my vaccine, and I'm excited. J&J, I'm done. I'm ready. I'm lining up work already. I got my first job tomorrow for Live X Live. I'm doing a thing with Jeffrey Ross. Very excited to be working with my old friend Aileen Boudreau and Linda Dorf, and out with my camera, you know, I'll get back behind the camera where I kind of belong, where I've kind of lived for years. And I'm also planning a trip to Atlanta on the 17th for the big Triller fight, the Instagram Fight Club, as I call it, with Jake Paul, and amazing talent lineup on that bill. So, which is why they're bringing me in for the talent, because I'm not much of a fight photographer. I have shot a fight or two. I used to work with Mike Tyson and Showtime back in the day when Tyson was ruling it. The Tyson fights were classic because people would come in, they'd spend like $2,000 for a front row seat, and they'd have like this fight would start, and they'd be walking to their seat, and before they could even put their butt in the seat they paid like $2,000 for, the ref was like this, fight's over, because Tyson would take him out in the first 30 seconds. What an amazing fighter in his peak. But Mike's back at it. Him and Evander Holyfield are going to fight too. I think hopefully going to be on that one as well. Another Triller, the Thriller from Manila. I actually saw the Thriller from Manila in Atlantic City at the convention hall. It was on satellite on a big screen, black and white, watching Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali fight from Africa. Well, no, Manila, Philippines. Sorry, throw Manila. You know, my geography shot. Anyway, speaking of Jersey, we have one of Bayonne's finest on today. Two Jersey boys going to go at it for a little conversation. Clem Burke, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, one of the founding members of Blondie, and he's been in so many other bands with every amazing legendary player, and came up at the time when the Beatles, the Beatles have, Clem, Beatles your biggest influence, would you say?
Well, one of them for sure. Something to do with my haircut, I think.
Yeah, you've been rocking the Beatles style for a long time. You know, I saw you get into it on Twitter recently about Ringo Starr because people were dissing Ringo Starr and saying, Ringo wasn't all that. But you had a different insight.
Well, sure. I mean, the greatest rock and roll band, the Beatles, the greatest drummer, Ringo. Goes hand in hand, actually. But, Ringo's, he was just part of my DNA at this point, learning how to play the drums. And he, along with a few other folks, big influence on me. And, I think it helped me to get to where I got to, wherever that may be today. But here we are on your show.
Welcome to the show. It's great to see you. The last time I saw you was I looked at our pictures, was the Bowie tribute at Carnegie Hall a couple years back.
Right. You were there, correct? Right.
Yes, that's the last time around.
Did you do that photo of me and Tony Visconti?
Yes, that's my picture.
Right. Yeah, that was quite an event. Yeah, it was. And actually, that photo that you used to plug the show today, that popped up on the so-called Rolling Stone 100 Greatest Drummers, right? Which it's a photo I remember that you took from back in the day when I was playing with Rama. It's kind of a very different photo. For one thing, I have a very flashy shirt on, which is not usually my wardrobe. But it was funny because when that came up, it was announced on April 1st, several years back. And I was in bed with Ellen, and she was online, and she said, "Oh, look at this, 100 Greatest Drummers. You're in there." And I thought, wait a minute, it's April 1st. She's making a joke. And then I looked, and there I was. And
not just in the list, but you're in that picture in the top, that photo's in that shot.
Right. That's what reminded me of, because you used it today, I think, the other day.
Yeah, I used it today to share, to let the world know that I'm talking to an amazing talent today, and everybody should tune in. I mean, you've been at it for so long. I mean, to think about, like, back then, like 74 was when you start with Blondie. So that means before that, you were cutting your teeth in the early 70s when everybody was just kind of figuring out. Led Zeppelin was probably at their most powerful back then, right?
Yeah, never one of my favorites. Old Bonham is an amazing drummer, and an influence. But I was more into David Bowie, Slade, T-Rex, things like that would happen kind of simultaneously. I mean, David Bowie was a life changer for me. I saw his show at Carnegie Hall in 1972 on the Ziggy Stardust tour, and went to every show that he ever did in New York City for over 10, 12 years, the Aladdin Sane shows, the Young American shows. I was really into sort of glam rock and, big influence for me, along with the 60s British invasion in general. I'm not a big Zeppelin fan, although, funny enough, a few years back, we played a festival in Norway, I think it was, with Robert Plant and the band Television and a bunch of people. And we hung out with Robert, and he was cool, He actually said to me after he watched our show, he told me that what I did was dangerous. So I don't know. I guess he should know. I mean, it's pretty dangerous for Bonham, wasn't it?
Well, I think I overheard you telling a story at the Bowie thing where you were talking about getting in a room with a bunch of guys and you all had the Zeppelin songbook and you just spent the night riffing through. Is that, do I have that right?
Not me.
No?
That's someone else.
All right.
I mean, Bonham is the main drummer for most people, but it really isn't for me. But yeah, Zeppelin, the first album's good. I saw them in Central Park for like $1.50. Remember, probably before your time.
Yeah, a little bit.
The Schaefer and the rink. Actually, we played there with Blondie in '79. Every summer they would have shows in Central Park in the skating rink. And I used to go to quite a few of those shows. And Zeppelin was one of the shows I saw on their first tour.
So Blondie really wasn't at it for that long in the first incarnation, right? I mean,
it was from late '74 till we disbanded or took a hiatus, whatever, in mid '82.
Yeah, because I remember I did see you guys at JFK. You played. They did a new wave day in Philadelphia in the early '80s. It was you guys, Elvis Costello, Flock of Seagulls, Robert Hazard, and the Heroes.
I actually happen to have the T-shirt right here. I was just going through a bunch of T-shirts today, and I found that one. That was the last gig in 1982, and it was a pretty disastrous one. We had a lot of sound problems. And actually, I'm in the middle of, by the way, writing my memoir, and I've been recounting that last show. And what happened was the Elvis Costello's road crew managed to lock our road crew into a trailer right before we went on. And for some reason, we were led to the stage by who knows who. When we get on stage and we're having problems and there's no road crew. The crew had been locked in the camper by Elvis Costello's road crew.
As a prank?
At the time, as a prank, yeah. It wasn't funny at the time, but it's pretty funny in retrospect. Those guys were jokers. I
didn't realize that was your last gig. Was that a one-off tour?
What's that?
Was that a one-off tour? You just did that one show at
no,
JFK?
It was the end of a tour we were doing to promote the last Blondie album called The Hunter before we got back together in the late 90s. That was at the end of the tour.
The end of the tour. And
we were supposed to continue, but one thing led to another and we didn't continue.
Yeah, well, I was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction dinner because I photographed that also. And it was one of the most awkward moments of my life in a room. And I wasn't even on stage. You were on stage.
Right. Yeah, well, it was pretty acrimonious and unfortunate. It was kind of scripted that how we would come out and I would speak first. So I would manage to get off my little speech. But after that, all hell broke loose. And it was pretty strange day. I wasn't very happy afterward. And I had some friends waiting for me in the bar at the Waldorf, and they figured I'd be all happy and excited. I'd been inducted. They weren't for the ceremony. They were just hanging out. And, I just kind of sat with two of my pals from high school and just kind of commiserated with them about how bad I felt about everything that happened. And, it was strange. It's more like the Hall of Shame for us that day. But I'm happy to be in the Hall of Fame for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're friends with both sides, right? I mean, you still are friendly with the old guys in the band as well.
Yeah, Frank and Nigel, I'm particularly friendly with. Yeah. It was a difficult time for me, when that all went down. It could have went a lot more smoothly, but unfortunately it didn't. But that's rock and roll, I guess,
Yeah, it was quite theatrics, and I've never been so uncomfortable in that room. I mean, there's been a lot of uncomfortable moments when they actually forced bands to play together back in the day. Like with the Talking Heads, they made them play together, even though David Bowie wanted to have nothing to do with it, and it didn't go well at the end there. It's like they try to force it together, and there's only so much they can do. And now they started letting people play with their new bands. That was something that Blondie did that I hadn't seen before, where they.
Right. Yeah, I have this theory, the Beatles, getting back to those guys, they kind of created a myth with the Hard Day's Night. And I think that what bookends that myth is if you see the film End of the Century, the Ramones movie, when you see how much insanity and acrimony and things going on, behind the scenes. But when we all saw Hard Day's Night, oh, look, all the Beatles live together in this cool apartment and look how happy they all are, and obviously, it's like being married to bunch of people at one time. There's a lot of ups and downs, but I'm definitely happy that we got inducted. I was really very surprised about it. Now I'm hoping the Go-Go's, my friends the Go-Go's, get inducted this year coming up, and the New York Dolls as well.
Yeah, when you talk about the Dolls, we lost Sylvain recently this year. No. He was a big influence. You want to talk about him a little bit and what he meant to you? Yeah,
well, Sylvain was a friend. I mean, I've been quoted before. The Dolls were like larger than life for me. They were like really my hometown heroes. And, I would see them on the streets of New York City while we were all living there. And, you would see them somewhere backstage at a show at the Palladium. And they were always kind of larger than life, kind of like superheroes for me. And, I became friends with basically all of them along the way. And, I did a show with Johnny Thunders at the Ritz, and I actually went up to Toronto with Sylvain, and we did a Johnny Thunders tribute album together, and never released. I'm curious about what happened to the recordings, but Sylvain was, very, very nice guy. He kind of was the glue, I think he was very disappointed with the events that followed in the wake of the New York Dolls breaking up originally, and he was a great guy. The last thing I did with him was we did a T-Rex tribute in Central Park well, a couple of summers ago, probably more than a couple of summers ago, and we had like a rock and roll big band and with guest artists, and Bill Sylvain was one of the artists. He blew the place up when he played. People went wild, he was a great guy, very nice guy,
Yeah, and unfortunately we're at this part in our lives where we start losing our friends, and it's not easy.
No, it's almost a daily occurrence nowadays. I'm getting ready to do the Walter Lure, who I toured with a couple of years ago. We did a tribute to Johnny Thunders, the LAMF album. It was myself, Mike Ness from Social Distortion, Glenn Matlock, and Walter Lure. And then Walter just passed away, and there's going to be a tribute, memorial for him coming up in, I think, the third week of April that I'm going to be involved in. And there's too many of those things happening nowadays. So,
yeah, well, it's better to play in them than them be for you.
Well, that's soon to come one day, I suppose.
I kind of want to have my funeral before I go so I could party with everybody.
Yeah. I went to the to Whitney Museum a handful of years ago, and this artist that did these obits on celebrities before they died. So they had like Rod Stewart's obit. They had whoever you can think of, but he just kind of did the obit and wrote it all out, the tribute and all this, but the people were still alive. It was kind of a morbidly interesting exhibition. I think
yesterday was 27 years that Kurt Cobain had passed away, which was just the same amount of time he was on the planet. So it was kind of a big day yesterday. A lot of people were talking about Kurt. I talked about Kurt yesterday, showing the pictures. And one of the questions that came up was, do you think 27 years later, Kurt would have been relevant, or would have been going through the same thing with breaking up the band and trying to be a solo artist and being a dad? Do you think, I think the same thing about Hendrix, of course, and Lennon. Do you think that over the years, do you think there's one part of your life where you're just so incisive with everything you do creatively that it's just sparking that gets softened as you get older?
Oh, well, it all depends. You could reference somebody like Bowie, who had a very long career, or with us, with Blondie. We've been going a really long time, and I think we're still productive. Our last album, Pollinator, is one of our best, and I'm not just saying that because it was the last one. It was a very good record. And I think people like Hendrix and Kurt Cobain, they probably still would have remained in the public eye, because they were so well known and such, they were like people. They had lots of success, and I think that would endure. You talk about, Elvis, which really doesn't really compare to Hendrix, but, his legacy. And
but Elvis at the end was kind of, it got kind of jokey and Vegas-y, and, he kind of went kind of out the pasture at the end. Yeah,
but he was still, doing his thing,
he was still the king.
Talking about the legacy, which obviously Hendrix and Kurt Cobain have the legacy. So it's hard to say. The Ramones are bigger than ever. They're like like Jim Morrison times 4. I think unfortunately, it makes it more interesting that the people are no longer around. It would be great. Dee Dee really blew it because he died of unnatural causes, and it would have been amazing to see him endure and kind of carry on the. As Dee Dee Ramone, and because the level of popularity for the Ramones today, they're the Beatles of the next generation, as far as I'm concerned. Probably the second most influential band of all time, the Ramones. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say what I often wonder what Hendrix would be doing, like you mentioned,
What was it like for you to be Elvis Ramone?
There's a lot of acrimony in the band, Johnny and Joey didn't speak to one another. And I was only doing it as a temporary thing. They had asked me to join 3 or 4 times over the first time they asked me is when Tommy left. But, I was in the middle of Blondie. It was interesting. Joey and I were friends, pretty good friends, and we discussed kind of branching out, but I don't think John was very interested in that. And Dee Dee was kind of relatively out of his mind, But I knew those guys forever, so it's interesting. It was fun. It was interesting. Trial by fire. We did that gig in Jersey. What the heck's the name? City. That one. John. Anyway.
I know the one you're talking about. The one that's Was it Bon Jovi or Springsteen? Is it a charity?
No. With the Ramones, it was it's not. I'm just now. It keeps saying thinking of City Winery, but it was City Gardens.
Okay.
In Jersey, we played, and John was the bartender there. John from Jersey. John from Jersey.
John from Jersey. Like half
Yeah,
my friends.
the guy from that did the Grammys this year. He took his place. John. He had the political satire show. John.
Oh yeah, Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart. Yeah, he was the bartender at City Gardens when I played.
Oh wow. And
we did his show with Blondie a few years ago before he left, and we kind of reminisced about that night. But it's funny how often that comes up, the whole idea of me being Elvis Ramone. I'm proud of my name. I came up with the name. I really like the name a lot.
It's pretty classic. And one of the other things I picked up on Wikipedia was your doctorate.
Oh, right. I was due to get another one, and then the COVID happened. I was going to get one from Chichester University. Yeah, it's been a study of the mind and body, how it affects drumming, the science of it, and it's been going on for so long now with particularly this Dr. Smith at Chichester University, who was coach for the England's Olympic boxing team, and began to make the analogy between sport and drumming, which is kind of obvious. And it's just ongoing. It's still going on. I'm kind of like the namesake of it, but they're undertaking a massive study right now that kind of got cut off prematurely because of the COVID, but they're carrying on. And I had already gotten a letter from Chichester that I was going to get a second doctorate. So
wait, one of the things was you played 8-year study?
Yeah, well, that was 8 years. That's probably twice that now.
Right. Oh, so it's still ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing. Yeah, but they use other people. They have a lab, science lab. It's really.
And it was like 100 gigs a year. Is that what it was? Based
something
on
like that. Something like that. And they wire me up. They do my heart rate, my oxygen levels, and all. It's very academic, but it's interesting. He's got a lot of great footage of the different gigs, as well. Dr. Smith does. So.
Well, but what have you noticed as you age when it comes to your drumming and your approach?
Not really that much different.
You have the same energy? You have the same energy levels?
I think I do, yeah. I actually think I do. I mean, I kind of work at it, It's interesting now because I haven't done a gig, obviously, like you haven't done a gig in like a year. And we're getting ready, actually, we have a film, Blondie. We have a little film because right before COVID happened, we went to Cuba. Right before Trump shut it all down, Obama had opened it all up, and we went over there on a cultural exchange and did a couple of shows, and we made a small documentary that's going to debut at Tribeca Film Festival in June. And apparently we're going to play in Bryant Park. That's going to be the first gig. But, I've been recording online, but as far as going full blast at a gig, I haven't done that, for like well over a year. But I don't really... I really work at not trying to feel any kind of stress or pain from playing. I know it happens. I know somebody like Carmen Appice has gotten both his rotary cuffs like replaced and all this stuff with hands and all this stuff. But I'm good. So we'll see.
Do you think it's the way he pounds the drums and the kind of music he plays, or?
Well, he's definitely a heavy drummer. That's for sure. One of the best. I mean, he's the big influence on Bonham.
Yeah, they kind of looked alike back in the day too.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. I mean, I saw the Vanilla Fudge the gig. It was Rod Stewart and the Jeff Beck group, the Vanilla Fudge 10 years after, and the Edwin Hawkins Singers in Flushing Meadow in Queens. And during the Vanilla Fudge's set, during the Jeff Beck group set, Bonham and Plant came out, and it's ridiculous, crazy night, but good memory.
It was a classic.
Yeah.
What was it like when in New York? Take us back to like CBGBs and like gigging before everything kind of hit, and everybody trying to make it and figure it out. I mean, punk really. I mean, Blondie came in with the new wave movement, right?
Well, we kind of started, like you said, in mid '70s in New York, and there were no punks at CBGBs per se. I think it was more like a bohemian atmosphere. People were like beatniks, somebody like Debbie or like Richard L. Kind of like beatniks. And, it was very insular and it was an anomaly at CBGB at the time. There really was nothing else like it. And there was no place to go on the Bowery, to kill time when you're waiting for your show. I mean, eventually we got a loft 1 block south of CBGB. That was the Blondie home base where we would rehearse and things like that. But there was one place called Phoebe's, which is funny because I always think CBGB, Phoebe's, why does that sort of like rhyme? But that place still exists, Phoebe's. But that was the only watering hole on the Bowery where you could kind of go and have a cup of coffee while you're waiting to do your show. And, the shows would be, if you headlined, you'd play at like midnight and 2 a.m. And, it was a long night. I mean, it was truly like in its heyday, really your existence was kind of like from midnight to 6, so to speak. Things didn't start happening until midnight, and maybe by 6 a.m. you'd be ready to kind of end the night. So that kind of went on like that for a long time. The shows were so late, and there'd only be a handful of people, and there really would just be no place to really go to kill time in between, like I was saying, because there'd be 3 or 4 bands a night, each playing 2 shows. And then, as time went on, things picked up, with Hilly and everything. I mean, Hilly Crystal should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think I mentioned that in my speech, my induction speech. He's definitely someone who should be inducted. I mean, the analogy between CBGB and what happened in Liverpool at the Cavern it's totally comparable. You think about the revolution that occurred in Liverpool, the bands that came out of that scene, obviously the Beatles, and then the revolution that happened in the 70s at CBGB. It was also very lo-fi, very, like I said, insular. It wasn't really a worldwide phenomenon at all. It was a particular thing that happened in a particular area with a certain group of people. And to see how it expanded to become international is amazing. The whole thing with the Cavern and with CBGB. I got to play at the Cavern actually a couple of years ago too, which was fun, really fun.
Yeah, well, I went there when I was Liverpool, classic part of history. But CBGBs, I mean, everybody, we wouldn't have had that whole new wave movement. I mean, was that Devo also in that scene and bands like that?
Well, Devo kind of played at Max's. I remember the first time they came to New York. And Cheap Trick, for instance, played at Max's Kansas City. Max's got taken over by a guy called Tommy Dean and became more of a similar bands playing at Max's that played at CBGB. Max's obviously was a little more classy. It was on Park Avenue South. It had a history with its former owner, Mickey Ruskin. And, famously, they had the show one night. It was Springsteen and Bob Marley together playing at Max's. But it was more like a showcase for so-called professional bands. Prior to what happened, later on, they would book the similar bands that played at CBGB. I remember seeing Devo for the first time at Max's. Cheap Trick at Max's for the first time.
Yeah. Did these bands spark off the stage the first time, or are they a work in progress?
No, they absolutely. By that point, it was the thing about CBGB. It was a workshop for bands like Blondie and the Ramones and television. You can make your mistakes in public, and only a handful of people saw it, and you would kind of learn from each other. And a sense of camaraderie did exist back in those days as well, until obviously Blondie became so phenomenally successful. We didn't really play at CBGB any longer, and we were kind of not ostracized from that scene, but at the same time, we were moving in a different circle after a few years, But it all kind of kicked off with us playing at CBGB. Phenomenal.
What was the line of demarcation that put Blondie on the map?
Well, I think the music that we played, and obviously the band and Debbie's Image got our foot in the door. And the people that we worked with, for instance, our first producer, Richard Goddard, was a hit record producer, songwriter, arranger, and he was a big help to us on our first 2 albums. And he understood where we were coming from, because we were fans of like bubblegum music, 50s music, garage rock, but there was a lot of different elements that assimilated into the Blondie sound that actually the Ramones had many of the same influences. The Beach Boys and 1910 Fruit Gum Company and stuff like that. But I think we just had a different spin on things. You know, I mean, we were a little more glamorous, I suppose, in a lot of ways. And, you know, it took a while. It was a natural progression. I mean, we came from the streets, and we had that initial success in the UK and Australia. And that kind of kicked it off for us to get a more legitimate record deal to make the third album, Parallel Lines. And then, you know, Heart of Glass and all that kind of stuff happened.
Yeah, Heart of Glass was what a tune. What a snare sound on that.
Yeah, it's a great track. It's kind of, there's like Heart of Glass, Miss You, Do You Think I'm Sexy? They all kind of happened at the same time. It was kind of like everyone was kind of doing their take on dance music, you know, and incorporating a rock and roll attitude into dance music, I think, you know. So I always kind of put those three songs together, and I you know, they were all like these massive hits, and they all kind of were atypical of those bands, you know, of our band, of Rod Stewart and of the Stones, you know.
What was it? Was it a natural thing to go with a female lead? I mean, was that like, because that was kind of the different thing I thought about Blondie, was you had such a strong female lead in there that we weren't really seeing in rock and roll at those times.
Right. Well, I've always said this a million times as well. As a drummer, I always knew I needed, obviously, to work with other people. And I was really looking for my Jagger, my Bowie, my Mark Bolan. And when I met Debbie, I knew that she was the one. You know, I didn't know, you know, it just happened to be she was a woman instead of a man. But she definitely fulfilled a need, especially in the UK, for a really glamorous pop idol that kind of, that scene had kind of dissipated for a while, you know. And I make her, you know, people always try to compare Debbie to, like, you know, Madonna or Gwen Stefani or influence. I think, yeah, sure, we influence Madonna and Gwen Stefani and Debbie style, but I always compare Debbie more to like people like Jim Morrison or Mark Bolan or David Bowie. She really is just as talented, and you know, a lot of times that is neglected because she was so glamorous, you know. But there was a synergy within the band and a chemistry, you know, that really, we helped each other, you know, and we all believed in what we were doing, I suppose. And, you know, we got positive reinforcement as time went on.
That's for sure. Really incredibly popular. And was most of the songs written by Chris, or was it a full band thing, or how much input did Blondie have into songwriting?
Well, there were 5 songwriters in Blondie, basically. Everyone contributed, and arrangement-wise and things like that. And getting back to the producers, both Richard Goddard and Mike Chapman, who went on to produce us later, were both songwriters, hit songwriters, as well as producers. And they really did help us with the arrangements and with, you know, getting the songs in a good place while we were in the studio. I really prefer those kind of producers, and that are kind of hands-on and kind of really become kind of like the more or less 6th member or 5th member of the band, even like you think of like a George Martin. And by the way, one of the reasons I kind of like doing these shows, you know, I have a band called the Empty Hearts, and our producer is Ed Stasium, who went along, produced the Ramones, produced Living Color, and he worked on the first Talking Heads album, and also during the lockdown, the Empty Hearts' 2nd album came out on Wicked Cool in August, and we work with Ed Stasium, and he is really a good example of the kind of producer I like to work with, hands-on, with songwriting, with arrangements, and his contribution lends itself to becoming, you know, the anchor and becoming the sort of, in this case, the 5th member of the band. Those are the best kind of producers. So.
Yeah, well, people are different. Some people like the producer not to have an opinion, and other people want the guy to really be involved, right?
You have a producer, you need to have someone that you can interact with creatively. That's the whole idea of having a producer. Is
to have that extra set of ears.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And also not have the politics.
Yeah, I suppose, but the producer has to deal with a lot of the politics behind the scene, generally.
Yeah. So well, the Empty Hearts, do you have anything on the docket? You guys going to be playing soon, or?
Well, we're hoping to see what's going to happen as things open up. The band, you know, we released the 2nd album it's on Wicked Cool on Steve Van Zant's record label. We released it at the end of August. And, you know, we were planning on doing a launch actually at the Whiskey, along with with Steve, and then a bunch of people, a kind of a underground garage sponsored thing. And so that went away. But yeah, we're hoping to record more and also tour. We're supposed to go to Paris and to London a few times, and for whatever reason we didn't go. And there was the shooting at the Bataclan when we were supposed to play in Paris, and we kind of put the brakes on that. But the thing the thing that I have coming up really is there's a Blondie tour on the cards that's been on the cards for a long time in November in the UK, an arena tour that we're doing. That's, as of today, is a go in November. So we'll see. But there's a lot of things going on, that have been put on hold until we open up, like you were saying. So what's the word today? They said they're opening everything up June 15th.
Today Newsom said that by June 13th, we'll have no more tier levels, which means that they're getting rid of the whole reading of the thing. I don't think we're going back. I think we're not going to close down after this. I think that, and then Fauci came out today saying that there's not going to be another wave. And, you can see the difference. Like every day on the LAtimes.com, it says the 2-week trending average is down 40% every day. So the amount of deaths in the country, I believe, are under 300 or under 250. That was over 3,000 when at the peak. So everything's dropping. And I kind of think that, the Strokes are actually on the books to play the Forum in mid-May, May 17th, I believe is the date. And, by that time, the Forum could be 75% occupancy, and it could be just the kind of thing that we need to happen to get these shows back on. So I guess the numbers have to stay down. But Gavin Newsom came out today, and, he's been incredibly restrictive. You're here in California, right?
I am, yeah.
So you know what it's been like living here. It's been, everything's shut down. Yeah. It's amazing to see life get back.
Yeah.
We're getting back to it. I mean, are you excited?
Yeah, I am. I am excited. I'm really looking forward to getting out and doing shows, and what that's going to be like. I know my friend Jesse Mallon just did some shows last weekend at his club, Bowery Electric in Manhattan. And was pretty emotional from what I understand, But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back into doing what I've been doing for my whole life.
Have you ever stopped? Have you ever stopped this long?
No, this is the longest I've been in one place at one time, since, I was a kid, 18, 19 years old. It's interesting. I made the most of it. I've got a lot of things going on behind the scenes that I was able to do because of not having to travel and be preoccupied with, doing music. So it's good.
Yeah, what was the most, did you learn something about yourself that you hadn't known, or was there something that was revealed to you in the past year that you were like, oh, or like, have you set any kind of like new goals or?
Well, before all this happened, I was talking about getting out of the country, and it's still kind of my goal. I would like to live in Europe more. I always kind of thought that I would be. I've spent a lot of time in Europe over the years and lived in London for a long time on and off. And that was something that was kind of in the works before the pandemic happened. And it's still kind of a possibility. What I did was let my mind go back in time quite a bit, because I might have mentioned, I am, there's going to be a book. It's almost a cliche, everybody writes their memoir. Hopefully mine's going to be a little bit different. It's not like my life story. It's more kind of editorial narrative, and me writing about, for instance, the New York Dolls, or writing about a concert that I was at, or, obviously the genesis of Blondie is in there, but I've also worked with a lot of other people along the way, as you mentioned, including our buddies, Drama. So I'm trying to write little kind of, narratives and little kind of editorials about different people that I know and that I worked with over the years. So I did that a lot, but I kind of get so self-absorbed in it that I'm like in nostalgia land all the time. And I wouldn't have been able to do that because I'd be preoccupied with the here and now, and also with the future, like, oh, this tour is booked, I'm going to go on, where am I going to go and where am I going to stay, and all that kind of stuff. So that was a little different for me. I dug out a lot of my archives. My friend of mine said, do you still have all that crap? And I'm going, you mean my archives? Come on, So that's kind of interesting. And I'm actually got to the place in time where I'm auctioning off a bunch of stuff. Probably, Julian's probably, right?
Yeah, of
Julian's
course.
I'm going to be doing an auction with them in June. They put it off. It was supposed to be in May. It's not exclusively my auction, but I'm going to be a big part of it. And there's some original Blondie memorabilia is going to be in there. And just kind of cleaning the house a bit.
So what, old drum kits and stuff?
My original Blondie drum kit, the red one that's in all the videos and that I recorded with and all, we're going to auction that off and see what happens.
Wow.
Yeah, with a little bit of house cleaning, which I never had the opportunity or time to do. I was always so busy traveling and touring. So it was one of the things that was on the agenda during the lockdown, along with the memoir.
Do you feel refreshed after a year at home with your wife and just like hanging out and getting more control over your own space now that you're getting ready for Act 2? I feel like I'm getting ready for Act 2 of my life. Yeah,
it feels like that in a way. I mean, I didn't really mind the lockdown, all that. I mean, I've got a palm tree and a swimming pool, so pretty much, I felt lucky to be in the place and time that I was in when the lockdown occurred. I mean, I was actually on the East Coast when everything got shut down, and because when COVID first hit, when it hit in China, I was on my way to Mallorca for a publicity event to do with my documentary that Sky Arts did a few years ago already now. Sky Arts in the UK financed and produced a documentary about me that they aired in the UK, and it was kind of making the rounds at film festivals. And this guy out of the blue in Mallorca suggested that he'd be able to show it at the Modern Art Museum in Mallorca, and it was supposed to be in June of 2020. But he went above and beyond that, where he brought me over in March or late February. I went to Mallorca and did a whole round of publicity in Madrid, and then went to Mallorca and did the announcement, because it was like a cultural festival that he was presenting. And I came back from Mallorca, and then I went to New York to record with some friends, and we spent a week at my friend's home studio recording. And each day, things kind of got a little more strange as far as what was happening with the virus. And so I kind of right around St. Patrick's Day, I got myself out of, I was in Pennsylvania and headed home. And I've been home ever since. But the week before, I shared it with a handful of people in a recording atmosphere, and really kind of, sticks in my mind what happened the week before. And that seems like not that long ago. And it was, over a year ago now. So, yeah, it was different being home and just kind of hanging out. But
maybe Blondie was supposed to go out on the road last spring, right?
Yeah, well, there was that Cruel World Festival that was going to kick it off, that we were doing with the Devo and Morrissey and Echo and the Bunnymen. And right before in October of, I guess it was 2019. When did the COVID?
2019, yeah.
I did a record with, I was invited to record with Echo and the Bunnymen. So I did their new record that was supposed to come out in that May 2020. Then they were going to play at the festival and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, and then we were going to do a tour with, it was going to be X and the Damned. Blondie, X, and the Damned. We were going to do a theater tour. And that was going to happen right after the Cruel World Festival. But, of course, everything was canceled. And then the Empty Hearts were supposed to do the tour. Just kind of had to resign myself to, as everyone else did, that none of that was going to happen.
Well, you got plenty to put on the books coming up, huh?
Well, yeah, we're going to ease into it with this Blondie tour, but that'll be good. But, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And like I said, I think this summer we're going to have some gigs. So I get the Empty Hearts and get them out there.
It'll be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out. Is it going to be one big explosion of things happening, or are we going to easing into it already? That's kind of what would happen, right? So.
Well, I think every major band has moved to the fall. I don't think anybody's kind of staying in the summer. There are a lot that have not announced they're canceling yet. And, there was an article about the Chase Center in San Francisco yesterday that they have quite a few bands coming in this fall or this spring and summer. And, if they're actually going to happen. So I tend to think that things are going to get started sooner than we think. I have my fingers crossed, but I think that things are going to open up, and that not everybody that was going to play is going to be ready to go out. I think that's going to be part of the thing too.
Yeah, a lot of the venues are double booked too, which is a problem with people trying to get venues. I mean, I know with our tour, the venues in the UK that are booked, we also have them on hold for April, May of next year. So everything's kind of double booked, and that's kind of a big pain for the agents, you know, trying to get people that are just going to try to start booking stuff, you know. But we'll see. Life goes on, right, Jeff? Here we are, still here.
Here we are, just sitting around waiting. Two guys that are always on the move.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to remember the last time I saw you out at an event, but I know you were at that Barbados event, I think, with Ringo, but that was a while ago already, right?
Yes. Yeah, that was a while ago.
But I guess maybe the last thing might have been the Bowie thing.
Yeah, I think so, the Bowie thing. And that was like 2019, wasn't it? Or 2018, something like that.
I'm trying to think. That might have been 2018. I'm trying to remember now. It's hard to recollect in some ways. I mean, that was a shock with the whole thing with David, you know. You know, Rodney Bingenheimer, our friend, he was getting ready to do, a birthday tribute to David that night. And then he picked up on the fact that David had passed away right before he was going to go on air. And it turned into, you know, a memorial. Because the first thing I saw on Twitter was Duncan, his son, posted on Twitter that his dad had died. And it was like pretty late in LA. So most people didn't know until they woke up the next day. I mean, people in the UK and the people in New York. But here in LA, we got the word at probably around midnight or something. Because Rodney was getting ready to go on the air, I remember. So I think it was a while ago because Rodney was still on K-Rock, Rodney Bingenheimer. Now, you know, he's on Sirius.
Yeah, he's on Sirius XM. You know, Bowie, that last record is just so incredible. Black Star. I mean, to know that you're, I mean, to be an artist and to be making your final, what you know to be your final statement. Yeah. I mean, you have to dig really deep.
Yeah, it was definitely 2018 because we were the last band to record in a studio in Soho in Manhattan called the Magic Shop. And that's where David had made his last two albums. And in fact, you know, the studio staff were people that were there working with David and kind of were like, you know, had a signed non-disclosure, et cetera, et cetera. And when we were making the album, that was before he died. And it was, you know, before Christmas and New Year's. And it was like, so the vibe of David being in the studio and knowing that he had recorded his last two albums there was really exciting. But we were kind of hesitant to ask the staff, what was it like working with David? And they kind of would avoid the question and all that. And then we took the break for Christmas and then David died. And then we went back into the studio, the same studio, the Magic Shop, where they already had known that they were going to be vacating that studio. So it's kind of like Bowie passing, the studio closing, and us making this album there. And then we were able to talk to the staff about what it was like to work with David, because it was obviously after the fact, after he had passed away. So it was pretty emotional in a lot of ways. That Pollinator record that we did is kind of informed by David in a lot of ways. I mean, he was always a big influence on us as far as his chameleon-like attitude, not only to his appearance, but to his music. And, you know, we always kind of admired that. And when he went into dance music, you know, and like things like Station to Station, they're kind of things that inspired us to do like something like Heart of Glass, you know, along with like Kraftwerk and things like that. So he was a big part of our. Debbie and I saw him in Germany backstage right before he had that heart attack. We went to the show, and right before they went on, we went back and said hello. That was the last time we talked to him.
What a talent, and you know, what a history, Clem.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see that memoir.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we did the first national tour we did was with Iggy Pop and with David Bowie on keyboards to promote the Idiot album. And we had just released our first album. That was our first national tour. We did 6 weeks touring with David and Iggy. So it's very momentous, you know. Anyhow, yeah, Great to see you.
Good to see you at a front row seat. I'm going to send you all the photos I collected. I'll send you a link so you're able to use them in your memoir too.
Yeah, I would hit you up for that. Yeah. Thank you for sending that stuff of Syl and I way after Syl. It was great to see Syl recognized on the Grammys, posthumously, of course. But
yeah, well, you know, the interesting thing was I was like, did I shoot Sylvain? And I went in and looked, and there was that amazing thing with Dramarama and you on drums and Sylvain up in the front.
Yeah, you know, Syl and I were friends, and of course, John and Chris and Mark and Pete.
Yeah, Pete.
Pete, you know, we were all friends, and I think maybe they kind of met Sylvain originally through me, and then we wound up. That photos you sent me about us playing at the Coconut Teaser with Sylvain, and yeah, I mean, he was an inspiring person for me. You know, it was always a pleasure to be around him.
And then, you know, it's interesting. The Dramarama guys have the same influence in music, like everybody you mentioned, Mark Bowen, New York Dolls. They're cut from the same cloth, but they're a couple generations younger than you. I mean, but also from that northern Jersey. Yeah.
It was a disappointment for me when that band broke up. Right after I joined, you know, we did the one album, Hi-Fi Sci-Fi. I think they had a long way to go, you know, but whatever. They got in their own way, I guess, for a while. But John just did a new record.
John, the new record's really good. It's classic. I had John on the show and E-Boy, and we talked, and they're great. And, you know, they're such great guys. And you know, he's still an amazing songwriter and knows how to write a great hook.
Yeah, John's great. I would have liked to have seen us stay together a little longer than we did, but what are you going to do? Yeah,
but you know, also rock and roll has changed so much. You know, now everybody's famous for being on TikTok. There's no more record deals that you need to be famous or studio time.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah.
You came from a different era. Clem, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything you want to tell everybody before I let you go?
Just, you know, be nice to each other. You know, that's important, more so than ever. You know, I mean, punk rock and all that kind of stuff is cool, but you got to be nice to each other. Stay safe and, you know, help the homeless, all that kind of stuff.
Well, the homeless is such an issue here in LA, and they're everywhere, and it's just amazing. We have so much money, yet things are unbalanced.
Unbalanced, yeah. It's sad.
But
all right, Jeff.
Hopefully, it's going to get a lot better. I look forward to seeing you out there on the road and back into into our usual shenanigans.
Okay, great speaking with you, man.
Thank you. Thanks, Clem. Thanks for coming on.
See you later. Bye.
All right. The one and only Clem Burke today, ladies and gentlemen. Legendary Clem Burke. I mean, come on. That's a talent right there. He has seen it all. Really great conversation. Really fun to talk to. You know, thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I have a sponsor I need to talk about. This is not an easy thing to talk about, but I have a little razor here from my friends at manscaped.com. Let's face it, fellas. The trees look a lot bigger if you keep the bushes trim. And you don't want to be snagging things and cutting things down there where, you know, it counts, because you can lose a lot of blood that way. So our friends at Manscaped, they have figured out how to come up with a little razor that does not do those things. And you can get yours at manscaped.com. The 420 Live code gets you 20% off. Beautiful discount and free shipping. You know, you should try it out. And you could also do your sideburns and stuff. You know, you want to use it this way, not this way. This way. Cut away. A very interesting technology, and comes with a little light. Look at that. So you can see what you're doing in those dark corners. Check out Manscaped 420 Live code there. And, you know, what can I say? That's an awkward ad to have to do. I should follow that up with my chocolate. Our friends at Asher's Chocolate, Asher's.com. Your 420 Live code at Asher's gets you 20% off the delicious Asher's Chocolate, 5th generation chocolate makers down there in Pennsylvania. You know, Pennsylvania is the king of confectionery. I was reading that the other day. And so much confection comes out of so many sweet things. Our friends at Asher's have made a 420 Live bar. It's delicious. It has CBD and milk chocolate mixed with potato chips, pretzels, mini M&Ms, coconut flakes, and raisins. In order to get yours, and I'm not sure, I have a lot of international viewers today. Nice to see you all from Bolivia and all the places you guys checked in from. but I'm not sure we could ship overseas, but I don't know, CBD. You get the CBD bar if you spend $75 at Asher's. You get 20% discount off, and they'll throw in that delicious half-pound 420 Live bar. Come on, how many talk shows have their own candy bar? We do here at 420 Live. Tomorrow, we're going to talk to our friends. Where is that? I had a little vape here. Our friends at Mendocino Grasslands are coming on the show. Ian from Mendocino Grasslands. Here it is. I have it right here. Let me get rid of this banner here. Mendocino Grasslands. See it? This is the pre-roll I fired up yesterday. I don't have anything handy. No lighter around here. Come on. What is this? What kind of show, 420 Live show is this? Mendocino Grasslands, we are going to talk about cannabis. Another of my favorite subjects. Music, cannabis, entertainment, film. We don't shy away from much around here. We try to keep it on the friendly. Thursday, I'm not sure if I'm going live because I have what they call a job with my camera. The Live X Live is who I'm going to be working with. So we're looking forward to that. Everybody out there, have a great day. Thank you for tuning in. Peace, love, and happiness to everybody out there. A big hug. The hugs are going to be happening soon. I think when we get to tier purple, I don't know, we can hug. I saw that on the news. So get ready. And if you want to get rid of the tears, then you could just like open mouth kiss everybody you see in the street. I know there's going to be a lot of hugging and kissing going on. I know that. Hugging and kissing. Thanks again to Clem Burke for coming on today. We'll see you tomorrow, Mendocino Grasslands. Come on, we want to get baked.